In this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and we're going to extend the functionality of what we have already created in the previous 2 or 3 tutorials with this calculator concept. And in this tutorial, we just want to extend one thing. Instead of just having addition or multiplication as operators, we also want to allow for the user to have addition, multiplication, subtraction, or division. So to do this, we're still asking for the same input. We're still trying to get that operation in at the same exact time. But one thing is kind of changing here. We're changing for the cases that we're accounting for in our if statements. So right now in our if statements, if you look down here, we're testing for add, and we're testing for mult, but we're not testing for subt or div. So let's go ahead and add in those cases. So else if, remember the parentheses, in the parentheses the condition we want here is operation equals 2, and we want to say, we'll do the subtraction first, so that's SUBT, and then we want to open the curly brace and close the curly brace, and then we need to say else if one more time, and we're going to do operation equals, and this is going to be division, so div. And then we want to open the curly brace and close the curly brace. So now that we have the condition set up, we just need to add within this block and within this block the different little operators that we need in order to actually carry out the subtraction and carry out the division. So to do this, let's go ahead and handle subtraction first, and then we'll handle the division. And remember for this, the number 1 and number 2 will be subtracted from number 1 because number 1 is entered first. And again, this is just for demonstration purposes. Probably not the best way to handle that input, but we'll use it for now. So we're going to see out, and we're going to say the difference, because with subtraction you're getting the difference, is, and we're going to say number 1 minus number 2. And we're going to end line. So now we can handle addition, we can handle multiplication, we can handle subtraction, but the only thing that we can't really handle yet is division. So how do we go about handling division? Well, that's a little bit more complicated than the other cases because it's the one mathematical case in this situation where you really have a case coming up that you can't really do, and that is, of course, division by 0. If the user were to come into the application and do division by 0, well, let's go ahead and just see what that does. So we're going to see out the first number divided by the second number is, and we're going to have number 1 over number 2. And so if we go up here and we're going to build and run this, and we're going to test the division. So we're going to pull that down here. We're going to test division. So we're going to put in div, and we're going to input 5, and then we're going to input 0. And what you see here is the first number divided by the second number is INF. And what that means is essentially that they can't really calculate that number because 5 over 0, mathematically it doesn't really make sense. That's drawing a more on the math, so you can't have division by 0 to get a real answer with this. So what we're going to do within our else if for the division statement, we're going to go ahead and we're going to implement what's called a nested if. And for this if, we're going to test if number 2, and we're going to introduce you to something a little bit new. We've been doing equals a lot. For this one, we're actually going to do not equals, and for not equals, we're going to say not equals 0. So if number 2 is not 0, we want to print out the division statement. So the first number divided by the second number is, and otherwise, so if the number is equal to 0, we want to print out cout. We are not able to perform operation because of division by 0. And we're going to end the line. And now if I build and run one more time, after exiting this program, build and run. And apparently I had a little error pop up here. Number 2. Oh. So make sure that when you're doing this, you actually, number 2 is spelled with TWO and not the actual number 2. So now we're going to try to build and run one more time. And we pop up here. So now we're going to try to do division by 0. 5, 0. And as you see here, it breaks into that and says we are not able to perform an operation because of division by 0. So looking back into our program, let's go ahead and let's take this value that we're getting off here, and we're going to take a little bit of a slight deviation, and we're gonna store whatever we're calculating in a result variable, and we're going to set result equal to 0. And this is just kind of for demonstration purposes. We're going to have the add. We're going to set result equal to number 1 plus number 2. And instead of printing out number 1 plus number 2, we're going to print out result that has number 1, number 2. And then for this one, we're going to do the same thing, but result's going to equal number 1 times number 2. So result equals that statement, number 1 times number 2. And then for the difference, for subtraction, we're going to do result equals number 1 minus number 2. And we're going to print out result one more time. And then for division, we are going to do the same thing, but we're only going to do this if of course it enters that last little line there. So if result equals number 1 divided by number 2, and then we're going to print out result here, right here. And I just realized I never ended the line there, so we'll go ahead and do that. So now what we have stored in this result variable, when we get to the end of these if statements, if it is able to carry out the operation, it's going to have a value that is equal to whatever operation you want it to carry out, whether it be addition, multiplication, subtraction, or division. So what we want to do here at the end is we want to take a little bit of a deeper look at if statements and logic flow. We want to be able to say, well, if the result is big, and I don't know what you define as big, but I'll set that at 100. Print out, cout, the result was just big. And if you think back to math class, and if you've ever seen this before, what this is going to test is if result is greater than 100. So this is if the result is greater than 100. So if the result is 100 exactly, it will not essentially carry out on this rule because of the fact that it has to be 101 or greater to actually evaluate to true for the result greater than 100 statement. Along with this, let's go ahead and print out another else if, and else if result greater than 50. We're going to print out the result was not that big. And if you go back up here, let's go ahead and change this to less than, greater than or equal to 50. So this will print out if the number is 50 or greater. So 50, 51, 52, it'll print all the way up to 100, but it won't print out beyond 100 because that'll be handled in the first if statement here. So the program will never reach the second else if of the program. So let's go ahead and print out one last else if statement, and let's say if the result is less than 0, let's print out, because if a number is less than 0, the result is negative. And let's inline on that one. And then else, if it's not any of those cases, let's just say the cout, the value is just normal, nothing special. And these are just statements that we're printing out here to kind of just understand some of the logic that's happening here. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to run this a couple of times and kind of talk about the logical flow that's happening and look back at the program to make sure that we understand what is going on. So go ahead and let's click build and run. And we built successfully. So let's go ahead and let's just do addition because it's a little bit easier to see what's happening. So we're going to input two values. Let's input 100 and then 200, 200. And it says the sum of the numbers is 300. The result was big. So it's printing the result through this in the if statement of the first because it's the add. We have operation stored as add because that's what we enter back here in the command prompt. And then what happens is it doesn't look at any of the other statements. So it never evaluates the operation equals mult, subbed, in, or any of the other else's or else's. So it automatically skips down to right here and it starts evaluating this code. So if the result, which was calculated back up here in this top statement, which is number 1 plus number 2, which happens to be 300 in this case, if that is greater than 100, it prints out the result was big, and once again it skips over the else ifs and the else's and goes exactly to the end here. So that is the end of the story for that one. So that's what happens there. So let's go ahead and let's run this with slightly different values. So let's go ahead and exit out of that, and we're going to build and run one more time. And for this one, we'll do mult, and we'll do 6, and we'll do 8, so that should get us 48 as the product. And it says the value is just normal, nothing special. So what happens here? Let's go back to the code and kind of reevaluate what happens. Well, in the input 2 values, we get number 1, which is 6, and number 2, which is 8. So number 6, number 8. And then we calculate the product as 48 because the operation that we entered through the mult command is calculated there. Operation equals mult, that evaluates the true. Remember that when you compare things, you use the double equal signs. So then we print out the product of the numbers, and then we come on down here, because that evaluated true, the else if here, we don't evaluate anything else. So it automatically skips over all these things because we had one condition evaluate to true. So we get down here, and now we're testing that result. So the result in this case is 48 because 6 times 8 is 48. So we end up down here in if result is greater than 100. Result is not greater than 100. Result is not greater than or equal to 50. And result is not less than 0. So therefore, result has to be between 0 and 49. Or I should say 50, not including 50, so 49 approaching 50. So what we end up printing out is this else statement down here, which is the last in the progression of things that says the value is just normal, nothing special. So that was a little bit more of a look at if statements. we'll get more into this going up in the near future. We're going to look at while statements and integrating them in our program by starting a little bit new program. To make things a little bit more interesting, we'll probably be making a text adventure game or something. So that's it for this tutorial. Feel free to subscribe or ask any questions if you have. Thank you for watching.